Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Jew and Gentile podcast. I am your host, Chris KATULKA, and with me is none other than the sage himself, the one and only Mr. Steve Herzig. How are you, sir?
Chris, things are unbelievable right now.
It's going to be a great show. We've got great guests. Steve, before we get to those guests, though, we're going to be looking at Revelation chapter 16. We've got fast news coming up. We're going to be talking about classes that you can participate in FOI Equip, and then the Yiddish word of the day.
Chris, I got to tell you, there's beauty in this room.
There really is.
Beauty. Now we have 4 people in this room. Actually, we have 5 people in this room. The 4 are okay, but the beauty is sitting on your left. She doesn't have headphones on. She doesn't want to talk, but she's lighting up the room.
She is lighting up the room. Why don't you say hi as loud as you can?
Her forehead is shining.
Go ahead, say hi.
Hello.
That's my wife, Karen. Karen's been on the program before, too.
Yes, she has.
But she is sitting off as our audience today. She's the marketing director.
Actually, Chris, she's holding the door open because our magnets broke. She's being useful. We got to get some air in here. It's like a schwitz.
I know. Well, when we add people, I think it's our cooler. Our cooler is thrown off heat.
Our refrigerator dash cooler.
That's exactly right. Hey, Steve, we have just literally returned from our Friends of Israel staff conference at Sandy Cove in Maryland, and it was a fantastic 6 days of being together. Friends of Israel representatives from all around the world flew in to Philadephia to participate in a family gathering of getting together and connecting after 6 years of being apart.
It was wonderful, Chris, and we were trying to get some, they already flew here. We didn't have to spend any money for Jew and the Gentile podcast. We're trying to get somebody. We even offered money.
Yep.
And all we could get were 2 Polish guys.
Why don't you introduce the 2 Polish guys that are here?
I want them to introduce themselves. They're kind of shy, Chris.
No way.
Yeah, they are. I don't know if I should go on. I have an accent. And I said, the 7 people that listen, they won't care. They really won't care.
The 8th, maybe, but not the 7th.
The one in heaven was taking a shower before he left for heaven, and he was eating a sandwich. So let's be honest here. The 7 don't care. So let's start over here. Who are you?
Well, my name is Timothy Rabinek, and I'm privileged to be here with you, Chris and Steve. I'm a representative for the Friends of Israel in Poland.
Where do you live in Poland?
Where do I live? I live in Warsaw, so the capital of Poland.
Nice. Now say what you just said. Introduce yourself in Polish.
Witam, nazywam się Tymoteusz Rabinek i pochodzę z Polski. Mieszkam w Warszawie.
It sounds much more interesting in Polish.
100%. 100%.
And who's sitting on your right?
Well, let me introduce to you Andrew. Andrew, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, I'm Andrew Cieślar. I'm from Poland, Krzeszowice, which is very close to Krakow, and I'm also field representative of FOI.
All right, say it in Polish.
Cześć, jestem Andrzej, mieszkam w Krzeszowicach obok Krakowa i również jestem przedstawicielem FOI.
Now, this is because we have such a huge Polish following, too.
That's right.
I mean, we have a lot of people in Poland who
I'm
love...
watching.
Hey, first of all, I want to start here because I'm going to start with Andrew, because Andrew, you and your wife, Sylvia, I met you last... What was it? Last June?
October.
Oh, it was in the fall. And
You're really good at this, aren't you?
It's already going downhill.
You're like right on target.
I couldn't keep up. But Andrew, you and Sylvia, you had come to your new representatives to the Friends of Israel, and we spent some time together. And your wife is now pregnant with twin sons, which we're very excited for you. You have some names already picked out, right? Can you tell the story that Sylvia said for you about naming your sons?
Okay, so Sylvia, when we were thinking that it will be one boy, and Sylvia told me, Andrew, pray for the name, and after you pray, just tell me the name. And I was praying, and suddenly one name came to my mind, and I said, Justus. And she looked at me and said, pray again.
pray again. But now you have two names, right? So you did Eustace and Festus. Is that what it was? Oh, and she said, go back and pray one more time.
And Festus, Eustace Festus. No, but she decided to give the name David and Daniel. And Chris encouraged me for the second name. In Poland we give first and second, and there we have surname, and we will give them Chris.
That's what I'm talking about, Chris.
And Steve, would you like to?
What? I'll take it.
You'll be number 4.
That would be the first time in my life.
That someone gets named after you?
Right. Usually they say, what's your name? And I tell them, and they say, okay, now we know what we're not going to use.
That's right. All right. So Andrew and Sylvia are new to the ministry, but Timothy, you have been with Friends of Israel for quite some time. You and I have both graduates of the Institute of Jewish Studies. We're 1 year apart.
That's right.
Why don't you talk about how long you've been serving with Friends of Israel?
Well, almost 15 years now, so quite a time, and for a long time.
Yeah. Can you share? I'd like to get right into what's going on in Ukraine.
Before we do that,
Okay, wait a
no, we
minute.
have to share this story. It's a great story, and all 7 of our listeners will be weeping by the time he finishes.
Okay.
You got to tell your call to the ministry as your father passed.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to share that.
Sure. Well, I was a child of a pastor, and my father passed away when I was 18 years old. So obviously, this was a very difficult time for me and my family. But God was working in my heart even before that. So I was saved when we were together in St. Petersburg. And when the time came, the difficult time, God really called me to ministry to the Jewish people in this part of the world. And I went to United States. I studied there for 5 years. First, it was the Institute of Jewish Studies that Chris talked about, and then I finished BA in Bible. And I always had in mind that I want to return to Poland and to Eastern Europe, because I understood that I need to be used there. Mm-hmm. And since then, God really spoke to me, and I understand that this is not a easy work to do, but it's a very important work, and I am privileged to be His servant in this part of the world.
That's
you
amazing.
really took over. You wanted to take over for your father.
Well, yeah, I wanted to continue this work.
Yep.
I wanted to continue this work that he started, but I wasn't equipped yet. So
Understood, but you definitely wanted to continue.
Absolutely.
That is the part. Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing. Yes,
That's amazing.
And I remember that too from when you had come over, and we were just 1 year apart. Did you continue your studies at Philadephia College of Bible or Philadephia Biblical University?
Yes,
you
yes.
did. So you and I were on the same
Philadelphia.
track then.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. And I remember you, Chris.
How could you forget?
So,
Short guy walking by. That's what it
so,
is. You know.
it was interesting that you also had this story that started there, and now we are here in this room and talking, and we are in the same ministry. So
Yes.
Andrew,
It's
you
a
have
blessing.
a story.
Sorry.
How did you get here?
Okay.
You have a heritage. You have a background that's very interesting.
Yes. It was for me a big privilege to be on conference, because also I figured out that I met some of FOI staff 34 years ago when my parents were studying in States. And my mother was, and she's still involved in ministry, and that came naturally for me, as I was a part of camps for kids, for Jewish kids, and also I know Timothy for many years, and we also cooperated before I joined FOI in trips to Belarus, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Chris, you're sitting in front of two of the bravest people. Well, they're certainly the two bravest of the five here.
Yeah.
I'm a coward by trade. When everybody was leaving Ukraine, and in need of supplies. Our own Netanyahu left, and these two guys, amongst some other Polish folks, actually went back in. And they're unafraid. They're bringing supplies. Why don't you talk to them about that?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about your experience of doing ministry during a very difficult time. I'm imagining that, in all of the years that you've done ministry, Timothy, and that you've been associated with the Friends of Israel, Andrew, I'm assuming this is the most intense ministry that you've had with war going on as Russia invaded Ukraine.
Yeah. Well, we are not brave, for sure. We just trust God really in that ministry, and He enables us to do the things that are needed to do, because there is so much need. When you see people suffering, when you see people that are afraid, you need to help them. It's the right thing to do. So we cannot stay in our homes. We cannot just look away. There is a calling. There is a heart. And when you see the pain and suffering of people, this is a very natural response in my understanding. And we're just following this is the time that God has put us there. For a time like this.
Chris, hearing, just listening to Timothy, he said, we cannot look away.
Yeah.
We cannot look away. But that's exactly what the Polish people did back during the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands, if not turning in Jewish people, were looking away, not wanting to deal with it. And to hear, if our Jewish friends could hear him now, we could not look away. They're going to get involved. They're not going to drop off. They are going to participate by God's grace. It should challenge every one of us. Those words, we could not look away. And I really appreciate that, Timothy.
And you know what, too, is thinking about, we were with our CEO, Jim Showers, and we were talking about the amazing work that the Polish team did and Tatiana in Ukraine. And do you remember what he said? He said, before we could even begin to devise a plan, you were already in action. Like before, we could get our minds wrapped around what was going on, the Ukrainian team and the Polish team were already moving to help provide relief, spiritual comfort, physical humanitarian aid to those who were suffering in Ukraine. And Andrew, you actually would drive vans from Poland into Ukraine. Can you share about that?
Yes. War changed a lot. But what we want to do is remain in touch with our Jewish friends in Ukraine, no matter what. And I will travel to Czerniowce to a synagogue to visit a rabbi that I met before the war, and simply to help him whatever he needs. I will bring some chairs for renovation of synagogue, and always we are listening to them what they need, and we just try to bring these things with us, and that's it. We are open for whatever they need. We want to help them.
You fixed up a kitchen that was broken, destroyed, and you rebuilt it.
Yes.
For a synagogue. Was that what it's for, a synagogue?
Yes.
Yes, it's a small synagogue. Tatiana, she is living in Ukraine, so she went to Czerniowce. She organized everything, and it was for her. We are help her and help synagogue. We do whatever we can to support them. And we bring also a portable gas heater for food, which was crucial during the winter where there was no electricity. And when the heaters are based on electricity, they didn't have hot meals. So it was very helpful for them, especially in Kyiv. So small things. Maybe sometimes we can think of them cheap things. It's not so expensive, but it was very helpful for them that day.
You know, Chris, right now, I just read a CNN report that they're using kamikaze drones.
Yeah.
The Russians are flying kamikaze drones into buildings, into roads to destroy the infrastructure. It's a very difficult time.
Yeah, and I wanted to hear, what were the early weeks, the early months when it comes to the war that was going on? What was Poland? How was Poland responding? Because I think people were even moving into your homes, weren't they? Weren't you welcoming strangers
Yes.
into your home?
Yes, it was a national response, and I can say that I was quite proud of Polish people at that stage of the time. And we also had in our homes every day somebody else was sleeping in our apartment. So
how would they know? Like, how would they go? Would they just knock on the door?
No, because we had contacts with Jewish people all over Ukraine, so they knew us. They know that we are their friends, so they would just contact us and send us a message. I will be crossing the border, and we never knew when exactly they will cross the border because there was huge lines. So sometimes, it was in the middle of the night. So it was quite chaotic, but we were like the first people they could actually call to and send messages, and they were so grateful that we were there at this moment, and they could even like rest for a little bit, because in the beginning of the war everybody was so tired. They were traveling from all over Ukraine, different parts. The journey was 2 days, 3 days, something like that. So even just a bed, where somebody can rest and there is nothing to be afraid of. That was something special.
I bet that's that phrase, nothing to be afraid of. I can only imagine, especially in those early moments of the war, to be able to just breathe for a moment must have felt like a relief to them.
Oh yes.
I want to move for a moment, because when Ukraine before the war, what a normal ministry would look like, you all help manage the farm, as we call it at the Friends of Israel, a very special place to Friends of Israel. Can you talk about the farm and what it means to us and how we're using it for ministry in Poland and beyond?
Yeah, well, the farm is a place not far from Warsaw. Actually, it's like in a countryside. It's a big home. It's like a guest home, which was purchased in the early 90s in Poland, and always had this idea of a place where Jewish people would feel safe in Poland. And really, this has been a facility that was hosting a lot of our camps for children that we organize, also holidays with the Bible, where elderly Jewish people could come and also just rest and have fellowship together at that place. And God has been using that for many years. And I want to say that the two people that have been really instrumental in this ministry is Gustav and Maria Muszkiet, who really sacrificed their whole life to just be there and take care of this whole facility, and made it possible and accessible to people that not need it. And during the war, this also became a very important place where Jewish people would come and they would stay. And then we would transport them to a Jewish agency where they would have all their documents made ready so that they can leave for Israel, for example. So it was.
So you helped them make Aliyah.
Oh yes, Many people, they didn't stay in Poland. I'm talking about Jewish people. They actually, thought, Ukraine is at war, so we have to go somewhere. So a lot of them actually went to Israel.
Can you share really quick too, during the conference, our staff conference, you had talked about a story of an individual who had gone through one of the children's camps that you run, and the impact that camp had on her life. And you kind of just found this out recently. Can you share about that?
Yes. Well, it's a story of a child that went to one of our camps. And, at the camps, we see a huge transformation of children. They come from different families. Some are believing families, some are not. But there is a big change of children. At the beginning of the camp, they're different. And at the end of the camp, they're different. So actually, we have parents who call us and ask us, what did you do to our children, but in a positive way.
Yeah.
So they're happy that the children are very, very, nice, and they even clean their rooms and stuff.
That when
like
you
that.
said that to the group, the
Hey,
kids
Chris,
go home.
I think you ought to send your kids to the camp.
I was saying we need to send our kids
come
there.
on, send. No
Come back
problem.
cleaning their room. I would love that.
No problem. And for many of those situations when the children return to their hometowns, to their families, we don't sometimes hear what happens to those children. But this one story that I shared at the conference was that we went into Belarus and we visited the local synagogue. And when we were there, a lady, an older Jewish lady, just wanted to really meet us when she found out that we are in the town, and we did not know why. Why did she want to meet us? But anyways, we made an arrangement to actually visit her. And the moment we opened the door, she was hugging us, kissing us, thanking us for everything. And we found out that this family became believers, and they started attending a local community of the church over there. So it's just
And that
for
all
me
started at the farm.
It all started at that farm, and a child that had such a big impact on the whole family.
Mhm.
We sometimes don't realize how powerful God is, that He can change through a child a whole family.
That's amazing.
It is something that really touches me. If I think of this child, how radical a change it had to be.
That's amazing.
Chris, we're giving our 7 listeners a chance to just get a little of the blessing. We have Polish representation here, but we had people in Australia and UK and Canada and Israel listening to everybody every day, all the different
South America.
stories. Chris, as I sat there, and we have to give our reports. You have to tell everybody what you're doing. These are your peers. So we were like first. I think we were first.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And we sounded pretty good. I thought we were good.
Oh yeah.
And then we hear international and media, and I say, I'm doing bupkis. Didn't you feel like you were doing bupkis?
I didn't feel like I was doing bupkis, but I did. Of course, I admired what they were doing. But I felt like I'd like to think that if something like that happened here, our people would be stepping up to help.
I agree.
But I agree with you. When you hear the stories of Tatiana and the Polish team and what they did right away, I just go, we should have just given them the 210 minutes to talk about
100%.
all the various ministries.
I was walking out of the building this morning, and your wife was there, and I said, oh, how's it going? And it's going good. I said, isn't this great? And I said, I really appreciated marketing's report. We had a report from marketing, and she said, oh, yeah, marketing. I know, I did. She said, look, who's going to care about a logo when there's bombs going off in Ukraine?
Yep.
Which is true.
It's true. But it's still, the thing that we've learned through this conference is that all of us play a strategic role together in helping advance Friends of Israel.
And I want to say this, that we are a family, and we could not function without you guys. So we are so thankful for everybody who's praying for us, for whoever is supporting the ministry. This is a huge, huge help for us. And we are very thankful for that.
I just want to remind our listeners that if they feel compelled to give to the work that you're hearing about, this is just, what we're talking about is just scratching the surface of what the Polish team does and what the Ukrainian team does. Because we even have colleagues who are serving in Russia as well. And so, there's a lot of amazing ministry going on there. And you can go to FOI.org and you can find our ministry outlet section, and our international page will direct you to the work that we're doing internationally and specifically in Poland and Ukraine, and ways that people can not only pray for you, but also ways people can give and financially help your ministry in Poland as well. So I want to make sure our people know, if they're interested in supporting the work of Andrew and supporting the work of Tim and others who are serving in Eastern Europe, then I really encourage you to go to foi.org, and there you'll see in our website, you'll find a section on international, and you'll see them there. So I hope that you get a chance to go do that.
Chris, before we go on, I know Equip is the sponsors Jew and Gentile podcast, and you have a course coming up. But before you talk about that, Timothy, he's a YouTube maniac. We have a celebrity here. We have Beauty. That's your wife supplying that.
100%.
But we have a YouTube guru.
I'm telling you, Timothy, tell people the stats on the YouTube page that you started creating just in COVID. I mean, people need to hear this, and then maybe hopefully it'll draw our our seven listeners.
We'll add 7.
We'll add 7 subscribers.
We'll work at it.
Go ahead, Timothy.
Well, I have this channel called Israel My Channel, and you are welcome to
Say it again.
Israel My Channel.
Slowly.
Israel My Channel.
Israel My Channel.
You
Yes.
got to say it 7 times.
All right.
And the reason you got to say it 7 times is because, according to statistics, if you say it 7 times, people will remember.
So you did it 3, so you have to say it not all in a row. Just
All
say
right,
it as
all
you're
right.
going
As
through.
you're going
Okay,
along,
okay.
remind them.
So you got 3 in.
So anyway, everybody remembers the lockdowns, right? We were locked, we couldn't go anywhere, and I thought, what can I do? So I started working on some things that I could do, and I'm actually a visual learner, so I like to see things. This is the best way I learn, so I thought it would be neat if I can also teach in this way. So I started exploring this subject, and I found this amazing application, this amazing program called Unity Engine. And I started actually making 3D models in it. Of course, it wasn't like instant, but I watched actually YouTube videos to learn myself. So other people taught me how to do it. And eventually I had some models that I could do. And
Models of what?
models of different stories that I was teaching, but I focused on Jerusalem and the temple. So I have different models of Jerusalem at different time periods. So from David to Herod, and even after the destruction of the temples of Byzantium, Mamluk Empire, so all those I have, and then I use that as a tool where I teach, so that people have an understanding how Jerusalem used to look and how it looks now. So it's a really neat tool. And God has been using it in a way that I would never imagine. If He can make a YouTube out of me, a YouTuber out of me, He can do everything, really, because I would never think of that. So,
So tell people though, you're using this. And I want to paint it right for our listeners,
Sure.
and maybe even Steve. I forget where I was. I was in Jerusalem for the Christian Media Summit, and I'm talking with this gentleman, and I bring up your channel, Israel My Channel. That's number 4.
Sure.
And so when I bring up Israel My Channel, number 5, what happens is this guy goes, I follow that channel. So I'm in Jerusalem with an American, and he says he loves all the content that you do. And it really, I want people to understand, it's really high detail, 3D graphics. I mean, like you feel like you're walking into Jerusalem when you do this, which is just amazing.
Yeah. And so Israel My Channel.
6.
6, exactly. So I did focus a lot of my time on those models. So if you are interested in, seeing the beauty of the temple, understanding how big it was, how important it was, seeing all the gates that led to the temple, and this can help you also understand many things that you read in the Bible, because there are references of the temple of Jerusalem, the places that Jesus walked on. So it gives you a better picture and an understanding how beautiful Jerusalem was in the time of Jesus.
And so you have, how many people have been subscribing to your?
Well, there's now over 200,000 subscribers. 200,000
subscribers, and some of your videos have more than a million and a half views.
Yeah, some of them, yes. And it's amazing that people from China even contact me. From Hong Kong, I had the pastor just sending me an email. Can he use some of the renders for his sermon?
Amazing.
So I'm glad that it's helpful and people can enjoy it.
We heard from a person in China that was begging the internet to shut off so that they wouldn't watch us.
Begging the internet to shut off.
That's right. Because he didn't want the Jew and the Gentile
That's right.
anywhere around.
In Hong Kong, they're begging him for renderings of the temple, and in China, they're begging us to shut it down.
Shut it down.
Shut down the whole internet.
They'll never do it.
That's right. I hope that, Timothy, when you get 7 more additions to the subscribers, let us know so that our 7...
At least you'll know we pitched in.
That's right. Israel, my channel, and my channel are one word. Israel,
Yes.
my channel, and I'm going to tell you something. You won't. You'll know who you're talking to right away or listening to because you'll hear Timothy's voice as he's
It is
narrating.
high
it.
quality.
It really
high
is
quality.
All right, so Timothy and Andrew, please stick around. We're going to go into looking at Revelation chapter 16, and you two, please chime in on your theological. Understanding of what we're going to be looking at.
They'll upgrade the theology as they come in.
100%. And you could say it in Polish, and we just go,
Yeah.
So, Steve, we wrapped up Revelation chapter 15, and now for a moment we're going to look at Revelation chapter 16.
Yeah, let me read, Chris. I'll start off, and then you could finish me off. How's that?
That sounds fine.
We're going into Tsuris here. We have had the 7...
Do you
What?
Do you remember today during this? We wrapped up the staff conference, and Marty Wolf, one of our great colleagues, gets up and he's giving a testimony, and he starts talking, and I hear him go, "It's nothing but Tsuris," and I look over at you, and you're just laughing and shaking your head. So now, whenever I hear Tsuris, I think of our buddy
Chris,
Marty Wolf.
I thought you were going to bring up the samurai swordsman.
No, that's another joke. We'll have to save.
We'll have to save that.
That was
one.
a good one.
But we have 7 seals. And the 7th seal led to 7 trumpets, Chris, and each one of those not good. And now we're coming to the 7th trumpet, which blows out the 7 vials or the bowls. And that's where we're coming right now. In chapter 15, we talked a little bit about the sign in heaven and the 7 angels and the great song that they sang. And we looked at Moses and that song. Great and marvelous are your works. And this is when God is going to pour out his wrath. Mm-hmm. And it says, "And I heard a loud voice from the temple saying to the 7 angels, go and pour out on the earth the 7 bowls of the wrath of God." So the first angel went and poured out his bowl on the earth, and it became loathsome and malignant sore on the people who had the mark of the beast and who worshiped the image. The second angel poured out his bowl into the sea, and it became blood, like that of a dead man, and every living thing in the sea died. Then the third angel poured out his bowl into the rivers and the springs of water, and they became blood. And I heard the angel of the water saying, "Righteous are you, who are and who you were, O Holy One, because you judged these things. For they poured out the blood of the saints and prophets, and you have given them blood to drink. They deserve it." And I heard the altar saying, "Yes, O Lord God, the Almighty, true and righteous are your judgments." And the fourth angel poured out his bowl upon the sun, and it was given it to scorch men with fire. Men were scorched with fierce heat, and they blasphemed the name of God, who has the power over all these plagues, and they did not repent so as to give him glory. Then the fifth angel poured out his bowl onto the throne of the beast, and his kingdom became darkened, and they gnawed their tongues because of the pain, and they blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pain and their sores, and they did not repent of their deeds. The sixth angel poured out his bowl into the great river, the Euphrates, and its water was dried up, so that the way would be prepared for the kings from the east. Chris, this is bad news.
Yeah.
But it's kind of good news.
It's bad news, but that's why I have my finger. It's positioned right in 1 Thessalonians chapter 1, starting in verse 9. And I put it there because I always like to read 1 Thessalonians 1, 9, and 10 whenever I think about these passages coming up, because we're talking about an event in the future that will happen, but we're also living in a time period of God's patience. And it's patience for there's a purpose to this patience, that as many people as possible can come to faith in him. And there's a reason why, because it says this in 1 Thessalonians 1:10, starting in verse 9. It says, "For they themselves report what kind of reception you gave us." They tell, Paul saying to the Thessalonians, they tell how you turned to God from idols. So these are pagans who turned to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob from the idols that they served to the living and true God, and wait for his Son from heaven, whom he raised from the dead, Jesus, who rescues us from the wrath to come, from the coming wrath. And so I always like to put my finger here to remind myself that when I'm reading Revelation chapter 16 and the really, really, really bad news, the Tsuris, as you're talking about, the trouble, it's that God is in this moment giving us opportunities to make the Messiah, Jesus, known, because that's why he came, to rescue us from the coming wrath. Not the wrath that will just be poured out on the cross, but there's also a coming wrath. Because look, when Paul writes this, Jesus has already gone to the cross. He's already died. He's already been buried. He already resurrected. He already ascended. And yet it says that this same Jesus, when you put your faith in him, he rescues us from the coming wrath. And that gives me a confidence to move forward to Revelation chapter 16, to know that what we're reading about, if you put your faith in the Lord Jesus, you're not meant for this. It gives us a detail of how God is going to restore all things, but you've not been meant for this wrath to come. But this is why we also share the good. This is why it's called good news, Steve. Remember the eternal good news? And so that's why this becomes important. I always put my finger in 1 Thessalonians.
No, that's a very good thing. But these bowls of wrath, it's interesting. We've just been discussing war in Ukraine. And I got to say, if you're dying here in the tribulation period, or you're dying in the war in Ukraine, fact is you're dying. But there is a difference between the tribulation that becomes everyone on planet Earth at one time or another. Jesus said, in the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I've overcome the world. But there's a difference between that and what's going on in this text, because time period. Here we are in the church age, a time of grace, even where there's war that could happen. And it happened. We had World War II. We had the Korean War. We've had all kinds of wars. But this is the time of Jacob's trouble. This is the worst. Nothing like it. Nothing else will ever happen. And once these bowls are poured out, this is the height of the wrath during this period of time.
That's right. And it's a time where God is, I always like to say, you know, when a farmer is getting ready for a new season, oftentimes that farmer will burn his field in order to prepare for a new season of growth. And that burning is what enables for the field to be cleansed. It provides, you know, the ability for a new field to grow. And that's what's happening here. And God is pouring his wrath out, and he's beginning to he's been showing us the path. He's been warning about this. This is what the whole New Testament's about. Warning of this coming wrath. And in chapter 16, we see the bowls finally being poured out, and they're being poured out on the land. They're being poured out on people. They're being poured out on the sea. They're being poured out in fresh water, in the rivers and the springs. The bowl is being poured out on a cosmic level on the sun, and it scorches people with heat. So again, it hits people with heat. Fifth angel poured out his bowl on the throne of the beast, and the kingdom was plunged into darkness. And yet what is amazing, Steve, is that it constantly comes back to this over and over again, that the people refuse to repent. The people refuse to repent. And it sounds very similar to the plagues in the Old Testament in Exodus, when Pharaoh refused to relent and repent and turn to God, let the Israelites go. There is the idea of the stubborn heart that Paul talks about. Instead of embracing the kindness of God and allowing God's kindness to lead you to repentance, now finally God's wrath has met its time to come, and still with stubbornness they refuse to embrace his grace.
They're defiant. They're defiant. And they're defiant because they already made a choice. Chris, it tells us in verse 2, the angel went, poured out his bowl on the earth, and it became loathsome and malignant sore on the people who had the mark of the beast. Remember we talked about that?
Mm-hmm.
People who refused the mark of the beast, they couldn't buy anything. Women wouldn't be able to supply milk and cookies and food for their kids. They can't buy anything.
Mm-hmm.
So they went, some of them will go with the beast and be able to get those things until it's time for God's wrath. And then there's no hope.
Mm-hmm. And it's amazing because, next week we can talk more about what happens afterwards. And eventually we're going to be getting into this topic of Babylon in Revelation chapter 17. But I don't want to put our Polish friends on the spot.
No, let's put them on the spot.
No,
How
but-
do they respond under pressure?
I know, but I do want to say if you have any words that you'd like to
No,
add.
you don't have to say anything, but I bet you have an opinion. Polish people have opinions.
Opinions about the tribulation?
Opinions about Revelation chapter 16.
Just the idea of the bowl of wrath being poured out. If you have any thoughts, you don't have to, but we just didn't want to leave an opportunity. We want to give you an opportunity to speak.
Andrew?
Timothy.
That Timothy, he's smart. He's past the buck.
No, obviously it's a difficult passage to read, and many people are afraid of it and just don't read it. And it doesn't mean that it is not important.
Mm-hmm.
Suffering of other people makes us uncomfortable.
Yes.
And many people...
And you're a man who's, seriously,
Yeah.
you've seen it. You see it.
Yeah.
You just saw it last time you probably traveled.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that this is not the reality. There is suffering in the world, and we can see bits of it already. But what this passage is explaining, it's going to be far worse.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just part of this fallen world, and until it will not be fixed by God, it's a reality.
It's hard to get our mind wrapped around the idea that this is, I like what you said there, Timothy, that this is a part of God fixing the world. I think people have a hard time with that God does have a desire to redeem what has been broken. But through all of time, from the Old Testament into the New Testament, as we read through the scriptures, it's all been telling us about this moment that will happen because of sin and the fact that, as Paul says, we're storing up wrath for ourselves for the day of wrath. That's what he says. Like with every day that somebody who doesn't believe does something, they're just literally adding another little credit to that wrath bucket, and they keep adding it. But what you had mentioned is really important to see that it is a part in a big way in how God is redeeming the world, because it's going to give way to hope. We were hearing today about how things must get worse before they get better. So it's a difficult concept to get your mind wrapped around suffering in on a major level, but it is a part of God's plan for finally taking care of sin once and for all. It's actually dealing with the issue of sin as he pours his wrath out.
I have one thing to add.
Please.
When I was a kid and I was reading to the Revelation, it was very interesting book that day for me. But I remember when I read this passage and I was simply terrified how it will be in the future. As a kid, I was so terrified. So I went to my father and told him about this, and he said to me, Andrzej, it will be terrifying. Yes, it will be. But the most important thing is to trust Jesus and overcome through all of these things. And that's
good.
Sometimes it's good to be a little overwhelmed, isn't it? It's good to be a little scared. Chris, what strikes me, I didn't have because of my Bible was packed from the trip.
So I was noticing you got a different Bible.
So
is that from my shelf?
Yeah, it's from your shelf.
Oh, that's a that's my New American
That's
Standard
right.
Bible.
So here's what I like. 3 words. They deserve it.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
They deserve it. I don't think I ever read it that way before. That's in verse 6. It says, "For they poured out the blood of the saints and the prophets. You have given them blood to drink. They deserve it." This is retribution to the prophets and the saints who were martyred.
Yeah.
They got, it's kind of an interesting way to look at. He's righteous. He's holy. Everything he does is perfect. I'm preempting this, but the text is translated here. They deserve it. They have continually hit on God's people, his chosen vessels, to bring forth the word, and all the persecution. God's pouring out his wrath because of righteous judgment.
Mm-hmm.
They deserve it.
It reminds me of whenever we do Passover Seders. Do y'all do the Passover Seders for churches in Poland?
Yes.
Yep. When we go through the segment where we highlight the 10 plagues, and you get to that last, as you're going through the 10 plagues, you take some of the grape juice, the wine, and you put a dot on the plate, and you read through all the various 10
From
plagues.
the second cup, which is the cup of blessing, they remove a little of the blessing.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. The second cup, the Jewish people, think about it. The second cup is the cup of blessing. We take 10 drops from that because even the people who deserve it, who deserve God's judgment, as we take that second cup, it's not a full cup of blessing because we remember those who were innocent from a human point of view, who had to die because of Pharaoh. That's not a full cup. Those 10 drops, they remember the suffering of the Egyptians who were innocent.
Oh my goodness, I never knew that. That's amazing. My Haggadah must leave that out.
That must be one for me.
That's
I don't get too many of those.
that's fantastic.
I didn't know that too.
No, that's really
Amazing.
interesting. But I was thinking when you go through and you label them, it's almost it's very depressing. It gets more and more. It's
Blood,
darkness.
frogs,
That's right. And you're
vermin,
and you're getting ready
bugs.
to eat. You're about to eat dinner, and you're just like locusts, and you're going through. And then the very last one is death to the firstborn. And I think for anybody, that's just a big pill to swallow. To think.
That's because you were firstborn.
That's exactly. I'd be bupkis. I'd be out of here. But the reason God actually says that the reason that he would go after the firstborn is because Israel was God's firstborn, and Pharaoh kept poking and prodding and abusing God's firstborn. And so in turn, God would turn and do the same, killing all of it. God would do the same to Pharaoh's firstborn. And so it seems very similar here when it says the idea that, God is going to bring judgment because of the way that they deserve it, that the martyrs that were, crying out under the altar for justice. And finally, the just God, you are just in these judgments, O Holy One, you who are and who were, for they have shed the blood on your holy people and your prophets and have given them blood to drink as they deserve. So finally, God's justice, people don't understand. They look at the suffering, but it's also God's justice that's being poured out.
Amazing.
It really is. So we'll come back next week, and we're going to wrap up chapter 16 as we move into chapter 17.
Chris, I'm pretty excited now.
That's right. We're not going to do news like we normally do news.
We had zero time to prepare.
That's right.
Zero.
So we're going to do fast news, and we're going to include our Polish friends in fast news. Are you guys ready?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
get those phones
Are
ready.
you ready?
Way to go!
okay, so we're gonna have an English version and a Polish version of fast news, all in 2 minutes. I'm gonna get us started, and here we go. All right, everybody, 2 killed in a fresh Israeli airstrike as Islamic Jihad vows to avenge slain leaders. Steve, this is big because Israel has moved into Gaza to begin to take out the Islamic Jihad, so it's important.
And following up on that, Israel stands together in Operation Shield and Arrow, according to Netanyahu.
Netanyahu powiedział, że Izrael jest gotowy na wielką wojnę z Iranem. So basically, Netanyahu is saying that Israel is ready for a big war with Iran.
He's perfect. Great. Go ahead, Andrew.
Benjamin Netanyahu, król czy złoczyńca?
What does that mean?
King or cheater?
Okay. Netanyahu, king or cheater? All right, here's the next one. He looked at me like I knew what he was talking about. All right, Gaza operation gets broad political support as some trade barbs over Ben Gavir. Lapid Gantz offering backing for Operation Shield and Arrow actions against terrorists. So something to unify the government right now is very important.
Israel signals to Hamas, we don't want to escalate in Gaza.
Grupa w Izraelu zastanawia się, jaki jest arsenał dżihadu w Izraelu. So basically, it's talking about what is the arsenal of jihad.
Okay.
I like basically.
I do too.
Żydowski Hebron przygotowuje się do odbudowy.
Something in Hebron, right?
Yes, a Jewish Hebron gates ready to rebuild.
Okay, I got one more here. How Israel came to the UAE's aid after the 2022 Houthi missile strike. All because of the Abraham Accords, and everybody... That is fast news.
That was great. You guys
Good
did
job. Good job.
I do like the laughter that took about 20 seconds off our 2 minutes. King or cheater?
No, that was funny. All right. What did y'all think of fast news?
I loved it.
Okay, good. All right, everybody. Wait, I just want a quick reminder again. The Jew and Gentile podcast is sponsored by FOI Equip, and it's your opportunity.
Chris, you're teaching a course for Equip.
I am. It's your opportunity to learn the Bible from a Jewish perspective, and I'm going to be teaching a course this Thursday night, May 11th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, on Israel's independence and their leaders.
Who's your first guy?
My first guy is going to be Theodore Herzl. There he is, right there. Show him off over here, Steve.
There we go. There's Teddy.
That's right, Theodore. And
there he is, Theodore.
you can see him behind me if you're watching on YouTube.
That's right. If you're watching, you can see Chris hold that chin out, and you and Theodore are together.
That's
just
right.
the amount of gray to make you look like you know something.
That's exactly right. And somehow he has no gray in him.
No,
a little bit.
He's
got a little bit.
like a little snowstorm
That's
going
right.
on
He's
there.
got a little bit there. He was stressed out. You could grow a beard there, Andrew. Maybe let it grow out a little bit.
Next time I will be in America, I will have a beard.
There you go.
I can't.
You can't.
No, I can do maybe a mustache.
Okay, good. There's a mustache guy right there, Steve. We could see him right there. Nope. Yeah, there he is right there. I don't even know which one that is. All right, so please join me for my class on FOI Equip, Israel's independence and leaders. And, Israel's just celebrated a 75th year anniversary. And I always like to remind people, because as Americans, we look back on our history and, we think of George Washington, we think of Thomas Jefferson, and all of these amazing men, John Adams, who helped found our country, and yet we're hundreds of years removed from them now. But Israel is only 75 years old. There are people that are living in Israel today who were around during Israel's independence. Shimon Perez, I think, is the last of the founding fathers of Israel, and he just passed away a few years ago. So you have to think about how close Israel still is to that amazing moment when God restored them in 1948 and made them a nation again. And so we're going to be talking about that. Again, that's May 11th. It's you could register by going to foiequip.org.
Chris, you remember Thomas Edison because of electricity? Is that the...
I don't know what it was. I had a brain moment there.
Hey, it's good.
I got shocked.
All right.
All right, here we go. Everybody. Yiddish word of the day. Yiddish word of the day.
All right, Chris. Our Yiddish word of the day comes through Israel.
Okay.
And the reason is this morning we were giving testimony to what the conference means to us. And Danny Kalisher said he loved the connection. He loved the connection of connecting people from all around the world into the fellowship, rich, joyous, loving fellowship of the Makatenista, the family.
And can I just say, Danny Kalisher is the grandson of Zvi Kalisher. So if you're a big fan of Israel My Glory and you read Zvi's articles, this is his grandson, Danny, who's now in ministry with Friends of Israel.
And we're giving him the credit for finding us a Yiddish word that I was not familiar with, and you'll know that when I mispronounce it right now. The Yiddish word for connection is Farbingdung. Farbingdung. Farbingdung.
Farbingdung.
This is not a Chinese word of the day. It's a Yiddish word of the day.
Okay, Farbingdung.
Very good.
Farbingdung.
Yep.
I think this is the same word. I had told you about this word that when we go up to Brooklyn and we go to 770 and we go to where Rabbi Schneerson used to teach, all the Orthodox would get together and they called it a Farbingdung or Farbingdung or something like that.
Well, now we know what next time you go up, you say, now I know what Farbingdung is.
That's right. It's a connection. They're
and it
connected.
has nothing to do with the fake Messiah.
Nothing. It's just to gather a connection, a way to feel invited in, accepted, loved,
Connected.
and connected. That's right.
And we feel
Farbingdung.
connected to Poland today.
That's right.
And to your beautiful wife who lit up the room, held the door open so that we could get some air in this. It's like a schwitz in here.
That's right. It is like a schwitz. Karen, thank you for holding the door open and being an amazing marketing director.
Yes.
Poland, thank you so
Closing
much,
words?
Timothy, Andrew.
Any- Anything to say?
Well, it was a pleasure. I didn't know it's that fun. To be,
Wait, tell everybody really quick before we go off, because we were eating before we got started.
Yeah.
And you had said something like, there's no way that you can combine the Bible, something serious, and something fun together. How does that happen?
that was Anna.
that was Anna that said
was
that.
Anna that said
You
that.
can't laugh and then do something from the Bible.
Ah.
You can't do it.
In Poland.
In Poland.
In
Yes,
Poland.
it's
Okay,
very
we're in
Polish.
America.
Yeah, serious.
We're in America. Okay, well, listen, we love combining the Bible and making it fun and being serious at the same time. And we're very emotional people here, Steve.
It's rough.
We learned something about ourselves at the staff conference. You and I are high eyes. That means-
with the high I and the high D and
We did our disc test. We found out you and
turn
I
it
are...
out, it becomes an ID and you have to show who you are.
That's right, exactly. So anyway, we are so glad that you could join us on the Jew and Gentile podcast. Be sure to go to foiequip.org, register for my class, be a part of what's going on with the Friends of Israel. Connect with us. We would love to see
Look
you.
up Thomas Edison.
And look up Thomas Jefferson. Anyway, we'll see y'all next week. We'll see ya.